Today, America pauses not for one voice but for several. Across different worlds, speedways and screens, concert halls and living rooms, for lives came to an end, each leaving behind something that once felt permanent. A roar of engines, a song that made strangers dance, a calm voice that taught patience, a digital presence that felt like family. These were not just careers or moments of fame. They were chapters in American culture, written over decades and remembered by millions. Their passing does not arrive loudly, it settles quietly in memories and music. In videos replayed one last time, tonight we remember for stories, for legacies and the silence they leave behind. The news arrived quietly, confirmed in the early hours. As racing communities across the country began to wake, Gregory Jack Biffle had passed away on December 18, 2025. For many, the name brought back the sound of engines and the memory of long Sundays spent watching a driver who never seemed to quit, known simply as a Biff. Gregory Jack Biffle belonged to an era when toughness still defined the sport. He raced in a time when mistakes were costly, and respect was earned one lap at a time. There was no shortcut to the front, there was only patience, control, and the will to keep pushing. Biffle was born on December 23, 1969, and grew up with speed in his blood. Like many drivers before him, he worked his way through racing's lower levels, learning tracks the hard way. Every step forward was built on discipline and long hours away from home. Those early years shaped the driver he would become. When he reached NASCAR's national spotlight, Biffle did not arrive with noise or drama. He arrived ready. By the early 2000s, he was competing at the highest level, earning a place in the NASCAR Cup Series. Fans quickly learned his style. He was steady, he was focused, he rarely backed down. Much of his career became closely tied to the No. 16 Ford for Roush Fenway Racing. From 2001 to 2016, that car became his identity. Week after week, Biffle showed up prepared, racing with a quiet confidence that spoke louder than words. He did not race for attention. He raced to finish strong. A former crew member once said, "Greg wasn't loud in the garage, but when the car rolled out, everyone noticed. He respected the work." That respect flowed both ways. Teammates trusted him, competitors knew he would race clean but hard. Biffle's success came through consistency. He was the kind of driver who understood that championships and careers were built over time. Wins mattered, but so did finishing races, staying sharp and protecting the car. Fans who followed him closely saw a professional who treated every lap as important. As the years passed, the sport began to change, new names arrived. New technology reshaped racing. Through it all, Biffle remained grounded. Even as his full-time Cup Series years came to an end, he stayed connected to the track. Racing, for him, was never just a phase. In his later years, Biffle returned in part-time roles, including appearances in the ARCA Menards Series West, driving the No. 23 and No. 20 for Chevrolet SS for Sigma Performance Services in 2025. He showed that the love for competition never left. Age did not dull his instincts, it deepened them. A fellow driver reflected online, writing, "Greg loved racing for what it was, not what it gave him." That's rare. Those words echoed through social media as tributes began to pour in. Fans shared photos, ticket stubs, and memories from races attended years ago. The announcement of his death came just days before his birthday. He was 55 years old. While details were shared with care and privacy, the loss itself was deeply felt. For those who followed his career, it felt like the closing of a long chapter in American motorsports. Biffle's story was never about being the loudest name on the board. It was about endurance. It was about showing up, even when the spotlight moved elsewhere. In a sport defined by speed, he understood the value of patience. Racing analysts often described him as reliable, but that word only tells part of the story. Reliability meant trust. It meant teams could count on him when conditions were tough and pressure was high. It meant fans knew what kind of effort they would see every time he took the green flag. Away from the track, Biffle was known to keep his private life protected. He valued balance. Those close to him often spoke of his loyalty and straightforward nature. One family friend shared, "Greg was the same person at home as he was at the track, honest, focused, real." As tributes continued, many pointed out how Biffle helped shape the careers of younger drivers. His presence in the garage was steady. Even when he wasn't leading headlines, he offered advice without ego and competed without resentment. His legacy lives not only in statistics or highlight reels, but in the rhythm of the sport itself. He represented a generation that bridged old-school toughness and modern racing demands. A generation that earned respect through action. For longtime NASCAR fans, the memory of Biffle's engine pushing through the field remains vivid. The sound, the focus, the quiet determination. These are the details that stay long after the checkered flag falls. As the racing world reflects on his passing, There was gratitude alongside grief. Gratitude for the years he gave to the sport. Gratitude for the example he set. Gratitude for a career built on effort, rather than noise. Gregory Jack Biffle will be remembered as a racer who never backed down, even when the road ahead was long. His story remains etched in the lanes of American racing history, carried forward by those he inspired and the fans who watched him drive, lap after lap, into memory. The news was confirmed quietly, spreading across phones and comment sections before many fully understood it. On December 11th, the life of Tucker Genal came to an unexpected end, leaving a pause where laughter and familiar voices once lived. Tucker Genal rose during a time when fame no longer required stages or studios. His world was built from bedrooms, shared jokes, and moments captured on a phone. Alongside his brothers, Carson and Connor, he created videos that felt simple but deeply personal. They were not performances, they were glimpses into a family that felt real. Viewers didn't just watch Tucker, they recognized him. His humor was easy. His reactions were honest. The closeness between the brothers became the heart of the content, and for many young viewers, it felt like sitting in the room with friends. As his following grew, Tucker never appeared distant from his audience. He spoke the way people speak. At home, he laughed freely and showed warmth without trying to impress. That sense of comfort became his signature, and it's what made his presence feel safe to so many. One longtime follower wrote, "Watching Tucker felt like watching someone I already knew. He made bad days lighter." Messages like this filled social media as fans tried to process the loss. The shock was shared, especially among young viewers who had grown up with his videos. The confirmation came from his brothers, Carson and Connor, who shared the news with honesty and visible grief. Their words were careful, shaped by love and loss. They asked for understanding and space, reminding the public that behind every screen is a family learning how to breathe again. In the days that followed, the internet felt different. Comment section slowed. Clips were replayed not for humor, but for comfort. People searched for signs they might have missed. Many realized, painfully, how little can be known about what someone carries inside. Tucker's passing opened conversations that are often avoided. Discussions about mental health moved to the front, especially among younger audiences. His loss became a reminder that online joy does not always reflect inner peace. A fellow creator shared, "We see each other through screens, but we don't always see the way people carry." Tucker's kindness mattered. The words echoed across platforms, turning grief into reflection. Despite the sadness, many returned to what Tucker gave while he was here. He gave connection. He gave laughter that felt shared, not staged. He showed that family could be content and content could be gentle. His videos remain frozen in moments of light. In them, he is still smiling, still joking with his brothers, still part of a story that continues to be watched for fans. These clips are no longer just entertainment, they are memories. Those closest to Tucker remember him beyond the screen. They speak of a brother who cared deeply, who showed up, who loved in quiet ways. Their grief is private, but their bond is visible even now. In remembering Tucker Genal, the world is reminded of something simple and important. Every profile belongs to a person. Every laugh has a story behind it, and every life, no matter how it is shared, holds value far beyond numbers. Tucker's legacy will not be measured in views or followers. It lives in the comfort he gave, the smiles he sparked, and the conversations his life and loss have started. He will be remembered as a digital voice who felt human, and as a brother whose presence will always be felt. Though the screen is gone, quiet, the connection remains in memory, in shared laughter, and in the reminder to look after one another. Tucker Genal continues to be remembered, not as a headline, but as a life that mattered. The confirmation came softly, shared in the early hours as music lovers around the world began to reflect. On December 13, 2025, Carl Carlton passed away at the age of 73, leaving behind a sound that had long outlived the moment it first played. On the radio, Carl Carlton entered American music at a time when soul was changing shape. The country was moving, searching for confidence and release, and his voice seemed to arrive with both. It was warm, bold, and full of feeling. From the first note, it carried joy without apology. Carlton's roots ran deep in gospel tradition. That influence gave his voice strength and sincerity, but it was the blend of funk and soul that made his sound unmistakable. His songs didn't ask people to listen quietly. They invited people to stand up, smile, and move. When Everlasting Love reached audiences, it quickly became more than a hit. It became a feeling people shared. Couples danced to it. Families played it during celebrations. The song carried hope in its rhythm, reminding listeners that love could feel light even when life felt heavy. Years later, She's a Bad Mama Jamma brought a different energy. It was confident, playful, and alive. The beat filled rooms, the lyrics sparked laughter and swagger. It was a song that didn't just play in the background. It took over the moment. A longtime radio host once said, "Carl's music made people forget their worries for 3 minutes at a time. That's a gift." Those words echoed again after his passing. As stations replayed his tracks in quiet tribute. Carlton never chased trends. Instead, he trusted his voice and the joy it carried. His performances felt natural, almost effortless, but they were built on years of discipline and love for the craft. He sang with his whole body, turning sound into movement. Behind the scenes, he was known as grounded and kind. Fellow musicians often described him as generous with advice and patient with younger artists. One collaborator shared, "Carl believed music was meant to be shared, not guarded." He wanted others to find their own sound. As the music industry changed, Carlton remained steady. His songs continued to find new listeners. Even as decades passed, they appeared in films, commercials, and family playlists, bridging generations, without losing their soul. For many, his music became tied to memory, a first dance, a long drive, a moment of joy during difficult times. These quiet connections gave his work a life far beyond charts and awards. When news of his death spread, tributes filled social media. Fans shared stories of where they were the first time they heard his songs. Others posted videos of themselves dancing, honoring him the way his music always asked to be honored. One fan wrote, Carlton's songs made my parents smile, and now they make my kids dance. That's real legacy." It was a simple statement, but it captured what numbers never could. Carlton's passing marked the loss of a voice that carried celebration without ego. He didn't sing to impress, he sang to connect. His music reminded people that joy was something to be shared, not saved, even in quieter moments. His songs carried warmth, they offered comfort without sadness, energy without chaos. That balance made his work timeless, returning again and again when people needed it most. As the world reflects on his life, it becomes clear that Carlton gave more than melodies. He gave permission to feel good, to dance without reason, to remember that music could lift the spirit, even for a moment. His voice still plays in homes, in cars, and through old speakers turned up just a little louder. It lives in the rhythm of celebration and the echo of shared happiness. Carlton will be remembered not only as a singer, but as a source of joy. His music remains where rhythm meets memory, and where people gather to move together. Though he is gone, the celebration he created continues, playing on, beat by beat, in the hearts of those who still feel the joy he gave. The announcement came gently, shared through quiet headlines and reflective messages. On December 17, 2025, Sir Humphrey Burton passed away, marking the end of a voice that had guided listeners through music for generations. Humphrey Burton believed that classical music should never feel distant. From the beginning of his career, he spoke with calm assurance, never rushing, never talking down. His goal was simple. He wanted people to feel welcome in a world that often seemed closed and formal. For decades, Burton became a familiar presence. On television and radio, his voice carried patience and curiosity, inviting audiences to listen without fear of getting it wrong. He explained complex ideas with care, turning unfamiliar compositions into shared experiences. At a time when classical music was often seen as elite, Burton chose a different path. He treated it as conversation, not performance. He spoke as if guiding a friend, pausing when needed, letting the music breathe. A longtime viewer once said, "Humphrey made me feel like the music was meant for me. Even though I knew nothing about it, that feeling became his greatest achievement." He didn't just inform, he reassured. Burton's background gave him deep respect for the art, but he never hid behind knowledge. Instead, he used it to open doors. Through documentaries and broadcasts, he placed music in context, connecting composers to history, emotion, and everyday life. His programs were carefully paced. There was no rush to impress. Silence mattered just as much as sound. Viewers learned that listening could be calm, thoughtful, and personal. Over the years, Burton covered countless performances and stories, yet his presence never overshadowed the music itself. He stepped aside when the moment called for it, allowing audiences to focus on feeling rather than analysis. Colleagues often described him as generous and thoughtful. One fellow broadcaster shared, Humphrey believed the audience was intelligent and curious. He trusted them, and they trusted him back. That trust shaped a lasting bond. His dedication did not go unnoticed. Burton was knighted for his service to culture, an honor that reflected decades of quiet influence. He accepted recognition with humility, continuing his work with the same steady tone that defined his career. As technology and media changed, Burton remained consistent. He adapted without losing warmth, even as formats shifted. His approach stayed rooted in respect for both the music and the listener. For many families, his voice became part of routine, Evenings spent watching, listening, and learning together. Moments where curiosity replaced confusion. These memories carried forward long after the programs ended. When news of his passing spread, tributes came from musicians, broadcasters, and everyday listeners. One message read, "Humphrey Burton taught me how to listen, not just to music, but to silence too." It was a quiet truth that reflected his impact. Others shared how his broadcasts encouraged them to attend their first concert or pick up an instrument later in life. These were not dramatic transformations, but gentle ones, the kind that last. Burton understood that music does not demand attention, it invites it. His calm presence reminded audiences that there was no right way to feel, only a willingness to listen. In a world growing louder and faster, his voice offered pause. It offered space. Through him, classical music felt less like a subject and more like a companion. His passing marked the close of a rare era in broadcasting, an era defined by patience, clarity, and trust in the audience. These qualities are not easily replaced, yet his legacy remains alive. It lives in the listeners who now approach music with confidence, in those who sit quietly and let a melody speak, in those who discovered beauty where they once expected silence. Sir Humphrey Burton will be remembered not only for what he taught, but for how he taught it. With calm, with respect, with an open door, though his voice is now still, the invitation he offered continues: to listen closely, to feel deeply, and to find meaning in the quiet spaces between the notes.